Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D.
Brief.
This is the D brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's arts
and entertainment scene.
This is the D.
Brief.
Hey folks, it's Seth Ressler from the Debrief Podcast. Here's the deal. Becky and I are off again this week. We're out barbecuing and doing all the fun things that we always talk about on this podcast. But don't worry, first of all, Friday, we will have a brand new episode for you. It's a conversation that Becky and I had with Melody Batens. She is the brand new food critic over at the Detroit News. She's been there for a long time, but she just took over this role as the restaurant critic there. So you'll love that conversation. Plus, here's something new that we want to do, right? If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that at the end of every interview, we ask our guests for a series of rapid fire recommendations. You know, we might ask them to tell us their favorite place to go for a cocktail locally, or their favorite place to go record shopping, or to go for brunch, or to buy a unique Detroit gift. Well, if you're like me, you've been racking up all these suggestions of places to go, and then, you know, a night comes out when you've got a free night, you're like, hey, let's go out somewhere, and all of a sudden your mind goes blank. You can't remember any of the places that we've talked about on this podcast that you want to go. So I finally found a guy who solved this problem, and his solution was incredibly simple, but I loved it. He told me that what he and his wife do is every time they hear about a place in Detroit that they want to go to, they write it down on a popsicle stick. And they stick these popsicle sticks in a jar. And then when they have a free weekend or a free night where they're like, hey, let's go do something, what should we do? They randomly pull a stick out of the jar and they go to that place. And I thought this was awesome. In fact, I thought it was so awesome that I went out and I bought some popsicle sticks. Me and my girlfriend did it. We had no problem filling up 100 popsicle sticks. Did it in like 10 minutes of all the different places that we wanted to go to. And we stuck it in a jar. And we're going to start doing this. And now Becky and I want to issue a challenge to you so that you start doing this. And when you hear us talk about something that you want to go do, write it down. And we're even going to take it a step further. While you're out there having fun, taking photos, sharing them on Instagram, sharing them on Twitter, we want you to use the hashtag Detroit Popsicle Challenge. All right, that's the hashtag, Detroit Popsicle Challenge. That way we know that you're out on an adventure that you heard about on the debrief. Also, you can call us. All you have to do is go to our website, thedebriefdetroit.com, and while you're there, there's an orange tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Click it, and you can leave us a voicemail message. Tell us who you are, where you're from, where you went, and what happened. Tell us about it. We want to hear. It's all part of the Detroit Popsicle Stick Challenge. So while we're gone to get you psyched up for this challenge, here are some of our best suggestions of 2019, starting with the two chefs behind Grey Ghost in Midtown, John Formiglio and Joseph Giacomino.
Ooh. I like the music.
I'm already bummed.
Yeah,
that could have been it.
Here's how this works. We're going to ask you for a series of rapid-fire recommendations. Just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. Starting with this, we've got one Detroit native, and we've got one transplant who's only been here for a couple years. So what are each of your favorite Coney joints? You know, Coney Island joints here in the Detroit area.
I go to Hambo in Ferndale.
Are you a Coney fan now that you're here?
Yes.
Are you allowed to say that?
No, I am. I'm at risk of saying it, but I'm not listening to the argument of it being better than a Chicago dog because it's not.
It's just different. Is it second best?
Yeah, it can be second best. I do enjoy a Coney, but I don't like when people make that argument. I have to immediately shut them down. So on the risk on the Detroit podcast, I'm saying it.
Fair enough.
I'm a national Coney Island guy. I hate to say it because it's super corporatized out there and not as cool as Lafayette or American. But I grew up on the east side, and that was our hangout. Corner of 19 and Garfield, National Coney Island. A lot of good time spent there. So
I do really enjoy Lafayette, though, late night. Like 9 plates going up that guy's arm is pretty impressive.
One of the coolest things ever.
So I had a really good time with that for sure.
Nice.
Okay, how about what's your favorite Faygo flavor to go with those conies?
Man, that's a toss-up between cream soda and cola.
I just discovered Arctic Sun. I thought that was delicious.
Arctic
I haven't had that
Oh,
yet. What
yeah.
is
The
that?
blue bottle.
Yeah,
blue,
very
yeah.
impressive packaging on the Arctic Sun. It's got
Honestly,
these
the
rays
bottle
of
bottle
light.
drew me to it
You
from
feel good
across the
drinking.
gas station.
Like
I was
Smurfs in it? What's in it?
Let's call
it's
it.
white, but it's like it's a citrus soda,
Yeah,
but it's
like
pretty
a
good.
Sprite-y
Pretty
kind
good.
of thing, yeah.
Okay.
We'll bring you a bottle next time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite specialty food shop in the area? Chocolate, cheese, ethnic?
I didn't know if this counts, but Rocco's Italian Deli that just opened up has a really cool Italian import section. It has like a retail section to it, as well as their charcuterie shop there. I think that's pretty dope. I really like that place.
Nice.
So probably Tringali's,
Ooh,
which
yeah.
is an East Side bakery. A lot of bread coming out of there, but they also make this pastry called Edisi, even though I don't think that's how you should say it. That's what they say it there. It sounds like it should have a more Italian-sounding name. Anyway, but it's like this fried
Edisi.
donut cannoli hybrid.
What?
I'm telling you, it's like
It's incredible.
It is unbelievable. I was doing a speech for somebody, and they had breakfast out for the people that were there to listen, and this guy kept insisting that I eat it, but it's covered in powdered sugar, and I'm thinking like,
It's gonna
that's
be
just what I need,
nice,
right?
yeah.
I would take this down at 8 a.m. right before I go up and give this speech with this powdered sugar. You know, what are they going
Right.
to think it is? I don't know what's going to happen. But I took one for the road, and I remember it was my day off. I went to Home Depot after I was in the parking lot, and I was like, I'm going to take a bite of this thing. And I inhaled that thing after one bite, and I've been back several times. I bring them as often as I go to the East Side. It's incredible.
Wow.
That's
God.
an endorsement.
I know.
Yeah. So
Man.
good. Cannoli filling inside a crispy, like donut-y thing. I don't even know how it stays crisp. I'm going to go work there.
But it's
I'm
like
out.
the
Yeah.
layers on it. It's almost like a cream puff. It's almost like shoe
Cronut-y.
dough. Yeah,
It's
like
like there's a lot
it's
going
like
on.
fried shoe dough or something. I
Do
don't
chefs
know.
reverse engineer foods when you have
Thousand
something like
Oh
that?
yeah, all the time.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like breaking it down, like what, like, and you like sometimes you're picking it apart and dissecting it for sure.
Techniques, yeah.
But it's
yeah.
honestly one of the most difficult things to do because it's
Oh, it's
just like
impossible,
everyone's got the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
short of just going over there and learning how to do it.
I mean, it's like when I was a kid, my grandma would show me how she made her veal and polenta, and every time, like, I turn around, you add something to this. Like, I know you're not showing me everything. You know?
Right.
Like everyone's got a
Secret.
secret. So whenever you're breaking something down, you're missing someone's secret always.
Did you see how long they talked about that thing?
Yes, I know.
Sorry, I got really excited.
That is
Shout out
amazing.
to Tringali's
I'm
for doing
so
your thing.
hungry
Yeah.
right now. Okay, so next building, if you could restore in Detroit for your next restaurant, what one would you have your eye on?
That's a heck of a question. I don't know if I have a good answer for that one.
Me either.
Correction. I don't know that this building has a name on it, to be
Oh.
honest with you.
Where is it?
Yeah.
In Brush Park as well. It's like
Okay.
this really, it's on a corner by Bobian, and it has like this little, one part of it's like, looks like a garage. It's on an angle, and then it's attached to another building. I don't know what the heck this thing was, but just something about the building lures me in all the time. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much architecture. There's so many incredible
Yeah.
spots already being scooped up. We're already behind the times if you guys are going to give me that money to go do this.
Well, right. I know. We'll work on raising some funds. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, now, in recent times here, I wouldn't mind storming on into Eastern Market and making a little splash there since they're concerned about Paneras and Subways
Exactly,
going
with the
in
Nelson.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, the big drama.
Are you looking at anything? I mean, is there anything you guys...
I
We're
mean,
always
we
looking.
are always on the hunt. For some reason, we're going to keep coming back for more. Just can't get enough of opening restaurants. But no, it's really such an incredible time now to do it. And, you know.
Well, we're
this-
fortunate enough now too that people approach us with projects and,
I'm
and
sure,
spaces.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we don't have to be like spending a lot of time actively seeking stuff out to be considering things, and I think that's helpful.
What are the concepts that you're kicking around in your head that you'd like to do?
I would just say there's a handful that we both have, and our other beverage director, Will, has some as well. But I think we will always look at a space in a neighborhood and what does it need and what will fit there more than like what my desires and dreams are per se. Because I have a handful that I think I could get behind. I know John's the same way. You know, but I think depending on what else is going on, where a space is. So it's a matter of finding a space that's the right size for us, the right neighborhood, right development, right price, and then assessing like what would make sense here. I think that's kind of how we would approach things.
Smart.
Sometimes, I think you see the untimely demise of spaces that try and force something into a neighborhood that's not ready for it or doesn't want it or doesn't need it kind of deal. So,
yeah, it's like if there's a pizza place down the street, they don't need another one right next to it, right?
I liked Fists of Curry. And I know if it fit into that category.
I thought it was cool,
I never made it.
Oh.
Yeah, it just wasn't the right. Yeah.
I
Did you go before it was Fists of Curry?
No, I don't know what
I
it was
did.
before.
I went
For
to
the
Huron
Huron
Room.
Room?
Yeah.
I had dined there for sure, and I loved the
I
concept.
liked that too.
Yeah, for sure. I loved what they were doing. It was a really cool space, and
I honestly think
it's a
some
decent example
spaces
of
are
it.
just like a little bit cursed somehow. I mean,
Yeah, sometimes it's like the entryway's in the wrong spot, and it just throws everything
Or
off. I feel
something,
like
yeah.
something's silly.
let's see. If you're not at Grey Ghost or Second Best, where would you go for a romantic date in town?
I would probably go visit my good friend, Mr. James Regato at Mabel Gray. Such a talented guy. Really cool spot. I really, it's
a nice intimate space.
For sure. It
yeah.
is a nice intimate space. They always take good care of us, and just perching up at the bar and watching the bartenders do their thing, and the cooks as well. It's cool, and him having that little niche of a 42-seat restaurant is pretty good.
Last date night, both of them, I think I went to She-Wolf.
Ah,
Very cool.
nice.
Big fan.
You been? Have you been
Yes.
to She-Wolf?
Yes.
Not yet, no.
You gotta go.
I liked it.
Oh,
I
you
did
need to get in line
a,
for 6 months in advance.
I had a
Yeah.
nice even talking about walkability. We went to Castalia for cocktails, She-Wolf for dinner, and Willis Show Bar for a show.
Oh,
Nice.
man, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, new guy and native. What is the thing about Detroit that you brag to your out-of-town friends about?
Yeah, Chef Joe, that's a great question. I'd be curious to hear about this. Yeah. I mean, without question for me, it's purely the pride and enthusiasm of the people of Detroit. And sometimes it can get obnoxious where people are really defending it, to the death and have that feeling of like, well, you weren't here during the hard time and now you are, and you're just taking advantage of it and stuff. And that's fine. I'll take the haters all day long, but just so much enthusiasm and pride and, excitement when you say you're from here. And that's enduring. I lived away for 15 years, and it's like, even watching it over the years, the different reaction of people were like, you're from Detroit? And you're like, yeah, I am from Detroit, and 15 years ago versus, 4 years ago when we moved back here, it was just so different. So that's hands down my favorite thing about it.
I don't know, this is too cliche, but I mean, that's what I talk about the most is how I think just undervalued the dining scene is here. And I get really excited when I get friends in from out of town to like show them around and be like, I know this guy that's doing this over here and this over here. And I think that there's so much, and it's like, it's become to the point where I can't knock it out in a day. When I first moved here, I was like, okay, I go to these 6 spots. And it's like, but now it's like, there's too much. And I think that's generally it's too cliche, I know. But
No, I was recently asked to, if you had a friend coming into town 7 days, lunch and dinner every day.
Holy cow.
And I still had more ideas.
Yeah.
And I
think
was like,
top of
this
them for
is
sure.
amazing.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's like, and I think, I guess part of why I get a little pride from it is because I feel we've been involved in the development of that and the part of that. So
Absolutely. You were on my list.
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
Thank you.
was Scotty Simpson's fish and chips on your list?
It wasn't.
Oh my God, you got to go
This
to
I
fried
don't
fish.
know.
To go.
Where is Scotty's?
It's the southwest side.
Okay.
Deep southwest side off of Fenkel.
Okay.
And it's been around, I think, late 50s, maybe early 60s. It's a fish and chip spot. And if you don't want fish and chips, then you can have shrimp and chips, chicken and chips.
But it's like walking into like a VFW hall. Like,
Oh,
and it's
yeah,
like,
they
love
haven't
it.
touched that thing since they
Yeah,
built it.
it's awesome.
Potentially,
Nice.
maybe not even dusted it, unknown.
Yeah, you just feel the
They
grease.
fry and beef
the-
fat.
yeah.
It's like one guy back there just
Was-
dredging the heck out of some fish, and you get like dinner roll in a bag with the butter
Oh,
with
yeah.
the gold top. You get pie for dessert, and it's incredible. I remember reading about it in this, like, who knows, some kind of Southern Living or Good
Yeah.
Housekeeping. I don't know. When I was like sitting in the
What is it?
dentist's
Guns
office.
and what's the
Guns and Butter?
Guns and Butter.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
he's a friend of
yeah.
mine. We went to school together.
Did- really?
Yeah, Mr. Craig Lightfelt. Yeah, we went to middle school or elementary school and middle school together. And I didn't even know that kid became a chef, and then I ran into him, and he was the sous chef at a Michelin-starred spot in New York.
Wow.
Yeah, and
So
I was like,
cool.
"Holy cow, you're a chef!" And then
Yeah.
he came back, had a heck of a run. Anthony Bourdain came out
Mm-hmm.
and visited him, and I know my brother went to a few of the pop-ups and just raved about it. I mean, he was crushing it. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
where he went. I think he's back in L.A. now.
Yeah, okay.
Unknown.
All right, guys. Nice
That's
job.
awesome.
Yes. Look, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was great to have you guys here. Tanya Murray is a very funny Detroit comedian, and she headlined the Holly Hotel for the first time earlier this summer. We had her on our podcast to co-host an episode, and when we played rapid fire recommendations, here were her suggestions. We are going to ask you for a series of rapid fire recommendations, and I just want you to tell us the first thing that comes to mind. You worked in radio,
I did.
and you're a Specs Howard grad as well.
RTV 1294.
Hey.
Shout out.
Wow.
So let me ask, do you have a favorite Detroit radio disc jockey?
I absolutely do. Screamin' Scott Randall on WRIF. I
Nice.
listened to him forever, and he was the first on-air talent that I worked with when I was driving the van interning for Z-Rock. He was the first on-air personality I went to a bar night with, and I was just over the moon because I'd been listening to him on the air for years.
That's
Oh, cool.
cool.
Meeting one of your idols, I guess, right?
You're a writer. Are there any Detroit writers or Michigan writers? We'll make it Michigan writers
Mm-hmm.
that you're a fan of.
Mitch Albom.
Good one.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have a favorite Mitch album, either book or piece or.
He was at a show when I first started out. He was at one of the comedy shows, and he actually gave me a nice compliment on my writing, and so that was like the best thing ever. But I think it's Weekends with Maury.
The Tuesdays with
Tuesdays,
Maury. Yes,
yeah,
that's what it
weekends.
is.
Weekends at Bernie's.
Yeah, right.
Maury's,
Very different.
Maury's busy on weekends.
right. Only Tuesdays. Only
Yeah,
Tuesdays.
great book.
So you talk a lot about dating in your set. What's a fun date to you in Detroit? Where would you take a date if you wanted to kind of impress them and have a good time?
There's so many places downtown now. I mean, just to walk around, Campus Martius and see the sights, walk along the river. I mean, there's so many great restaurants down there. So I would definitely want to go have, lunch, dinner, whatever down there and check out the sights.
Nice.
You're from the area, Michigan or Michigan State, and why?
I have to say Michigan State because my uncle Jim, who is also my godfather, who has come to numerous shows, is a Michigan State grad as well as my cousin Chris. So I would have to say Michigan State or they would disown me.
Okay, fair enough. Name a Detroiter that we should all be following on Twitter.
Oh, boy. You ask tough questions. A Detroiter that you should all be following.
Or Instagram, either way.
I mean, there's so many great comedians in town. There's a lot of comedians that are really doing great things. I mean, Dave Landau that you mentioned is doing great things in this town. J. Chris Newberg, that's hometown. Trying to think. There's so many great Detroit comics. I would say follow a lot of Detroit comics.
We talked about wine. Do you drink beer?
I drink more of the cider beers now.
You have a favorite Michigan cider?
I really like Blake's hard cider.
If you had your own line of Detroit T-shirts, seemingly everybody does, what would be your logo on there?
I would have to say it was my birthday.
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Plug for the album
Plug.
title.
But I mean, seriously, that could be pretty popular. I think.
Do you have, because a lot of comedians now have T-shirts with a line from
some kind of merch.
their act. Yeah.
I have koozies. I have koozies that say it was my birthday on one side and my name and logo, Tanya Murray, on the other.
This is how you keep your Blake cider cool?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
It
That's what-
not only fits a can, it fits a bottle.
Right.
So,
Oh, look at that. It's a dual
Multi-purpose.
purpose.
I like it.
come to a show, you can pick one up.
What is the thing about Detroit that you brag to your out-of-town friends about?
just how many things there are to do downtown. My sister came here from New York, had never been here, took her down. We went to a Tigers game. We went down to Greektown. I'm like, you always hear all these awful things on the news. I want you to see how cool it is, how great people are, how nice everybody is to each other. And they were just blown away when they came down.
All right.
Good.
Great job. Tony Rocco is an amazing painter and visual artist. He is best known for doing the labels of Atwater beer. You know the labels I'm talking about. Those are really cool looking. But you can also find his work in a lot of other places around the city, including the Foundation Hotel and others. We had him on the podcast to talk about his art and his experience. And at the end of it, we asked him for some rapid fire recommendations. Hope you have your popsicle sticks ready, because he had some good ones. Here we go. We're going to ask you for a series of rapid-fire recommendations. Starting with this. You're a Detroiter. What was your favorite spot in Detroit as a kid?
Eastern Market.
Really? Would you go with your parents? What?
Yeah. It's an immigrant thing, man. Like, so it reminded them of the old country. They loved it. We'd get lamb there and such.
Nice.
So in Eastern Market, you have all the murals, of course. Do you have a favorite outdoor mural?
Not in Eastern Market as much.
Or anywhere else, really?
The Russell. The Russell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The lion.
Yeah, Kobe, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my favorite Detroit mural.
Do you have a favorite monument in the city of Detroit?
A favorite monument? I've always been fascinated with the Joe Louis fist, just because, it's
different.
It was actually they actually used his actual fist for that. For as a reference. So yeah.
Nice. We haven't talked about music. Is music part of your artistic process at all?
Absolutely.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite Detroit musical artist?
A favorite Detroit musical artist? I'm a huge fan of Johnny B. He's the drummer for the Rockets. Also played with Mitch Ryder, and we're good buds. And he's just has stories for days, and I'm just fascinated with that guy.
How about a place to go on a romantic date?
If I was a romantic, I like Flowers of Vietnam. I just think that, it just has something special about it that you're pretty much going to impress anybody you bring there.
Good call.
Who is a Detroiter whose name everyone should know?
I'm Charles McGee, an African-American artist. I had mentioned my favorite mural, but maybe that was post the Foundation Hotel bringing back the Charles McGee mural. So African-American artist, you'd probably be familiar with his piece. He did the sculpture out in front of the Charles H. Wright Museum.
Yeah.
Kresge, eminent artist.
Yeah.
And just this mural that Tony's talking about was originally painted in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then had faded. And they're actually able to restore it with original colors.
And I thought it's just such a class act that they brought that back rather than. And if anybody knows him, I've been dying to meet this guy. So
while he's still alive, he's in his 90s.
So.
Let's end with this. Where in Detroit would you go if it was the last day before you died?
Yikes!
I know.
Where would I go after? The Atrium in Belle Isle has always been a favorite spot. It's so peaceful. It's very hard to clear my thoughts, but that's one place that does it. So yeah.
All right.
That's
there
good.
we go.
That I do, guys. Okay.
Really well.
Absolutely fantastic. You won a 6-pack of that water beer.
Yes.
All right, guys, there you have it. Some fodder for your Popsicle Stick Challenge. Remember, every time you're listening to our podcast, you hear of a place you want to go, write it down on a popsicle stick, stick it in your jar, and then when you got a free night, just randomly draw a stick and head on out. When you do, Make sure you're taking photos. Make sure you're posting them to Twitter or posting them to Instagram and using the hashtag Detroit Popsicle Challenge. Also, you can go to our website, click that orange tab on the right side that says send voicemail, and leave us a voicemail. Tell us where you went. Tell us how it went. We'd love to hear from you. It's the Detroit Popsicle Stick Challenge.
The Debrief.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.